Oh, we're live streaming, are we?
All right. Yes, we are live.
Hello, world.
Hello, everyone. Um, I'm here with Galahad, and this is actually show 100.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
right.
Uh,
So we're here for your centenary.
yeah, uh, it's it's been amazing since I've been doing this ever since November 4th, 2020, and I've talked to a lot of amazing people, friends that I made on Facebook, and I get to talk to these guys again. Stu and Dean from Galahad,
Mm.
and they have a new album out. Let's get to that.
No.
They have a new album out, and it's called "The Long Goodbye." And I said it on your last one. You guys always, since I've known your band since year zero, you keep each one. You keep on in my opinion, you kind of up the ante. You make it, I guess you progress basically. And to me, that's very little. I've noticed that there's very little bands nowadays that are trying new things with their sound. They tend to just kind of stick with what they know and then, kind of repeat what they've done, maybe slightly different, but I like bands like yours that change it up. It's never really the same sounding album, and I really like that. And Along the Goodbye is just that.
I'm glad you noticed that because when you're in the band or close to it, you don't always know whether that's actually the case. But that's how we think. That's what we try and do. We do try and change it every time. But sometimes you feel that maybe when you're a bit so close, every little nuance you think is different. But it's good that you've picked up on it because that means that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Yeah, vindicated. Well, hey.
Yes.
Yeah. No, we always try and try different sort of influences and elements and things, and I think I think Dean would agree. It would be a bit boring if we just did the same thing time after time, and end up being the status quo of prog or something. We're not any disrespect the status quo, but we don't like the status quo.
Right.
We like to move it, and yeah, and we always try.
It's good to explore, isn't it? It's great to explore that idea. And Stu will often phone me up and say, "Oh, I just heard this new band, or have a listen to this track, and it is something which is just a discovery all the time for us.
I think it's interesting. The older you get, obviously, the more you hear and the more you've heard, and it sort of gets harder in a way to try something that is different. But again, being different it's relative, isn't it? Because if you haven't heard that much music, then everything is a discovery. It's excitement. It reminds me when I was in my teenage years, and the first time I listened to all the old school prog, Genesis, Yes, Rush, Jethro Tull, and Barclay James Harvest, etc. Every few weeks, I'm thinking, God, what's this? What's that? But of course, we've kind of exhausted all that. We've kind of heard everything.
And, Dean, Kevin Feely from Nearfest is in the chat room.
And said, say hello to him for me. Great guy. He absolutely saved our behinds a few times when we went over there last. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Cool. So, Long Goodbye. Tell us a little about this, for people that don't know or haven't purchased this yet, tell us a little bit about it. The inspiration.
It's a difficult one, really.
Yeah.
I think the odd thing is, on the last few albums, it's almost like we haven't really thought about inspiration, or we haven't thought, let's do something that sounds like so and so or so and so. It's more a case of literally the music and the sounds. Dean comes up with the music, or demos or whatever, and it just inspires me to write or find some words that match or whatever. And it's not really inspired by any other bands as such, but it's just we kind of inspire each other in a way, if you see what I mean. And I think that's why there's a bit of an electronic tinge, certainly on the last two albums. And I mean, I know that we've done that for many years, but I mean, Seas of Change was a little bit different, because that was almost like that was a bit more traditional. We tried doing something a bit more traditional, and as Dean will testify, I just kept saying, well, why don't we throw in a mellotron here, or a harpsichord there, or a flute?
Our 7 minute demo track turned into 42 minutes, didn't
it? Yeah. But this album is much more song based. And a lot of the songs actually had a very long gestation. I mean, a lot of these songs we were working on several years ago, and The Long Goodbye is something that's been sat sort of in a file for many sort of years. And I was watching a film called Still Alice, which actually got me quite, I watched it, and it, almost made me sort of cry in a way, because obviously it's about a woman in her 50s. She's a lecturer. She's very clever. She's very intelligent. And suddenly she starts forgetting things, and not remembering where she is, and has to use lots of post-its to tell her, remind her what she's doing. And that gave me the idea for the song to a certain extent. But also my aunt and my grandma, they both had Alzheimer's as well. And so I was thinking about them when I was sort of putting it all together. And we just gradually, me and Dean worked on it, and then we worked on it with the band. And the end section we actually wrote with the whole band.
That was brilliant. Yes, yeah, that was funny enough. I've just got both of the because these were from the same sessions that myself and Stuart were working on.
They're really big CDs, Dean.
Sorry,
they're really big CDs.
They're big CDs, these, aren't they? Yeah. Right in the place. They're these big black plastic CDs. But yeah, it's interesting, because obviously on the as we put all the demos together, it was very much then a decision of which went on to which album, which sessions were we going to work on first. And of course, from this also, we had, as Stu said, we had Seas of Change as well. So really, I just wanted to refresh myself with what tracks are on here.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So yeah, from the main album, obviously there are some bonus tracks on the CD, I believe, aren't there? So
yes,
there are.
Yeah,
there are. I've got to get it.
The bonus on here. But as Stu said, the Long Goodbye was a song basically sort of based around dementia, and what the lovely story that myself and Stu were really pleased about was that when we put all the demos together and then gave them to the band, which is Spencer Luckman, Mark Spencer, and Lee Abraham, we then had discussions about what songs we were going to do. And Mark said, The Long Goodbye is a little bit disjointed and a bit confusing. And we were like, that's exactly what we tried to do.
Right.
That's what happens when you get Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yeah. So we were really pleased that he said that. I think, and then all of a sudden, Mark got it when we then said that's exactly what we wanted. And the great thing about that was the fact that, as Stu just said, the whole end section was written as a band. That was written by Galahad. Although myself and Stuart wrote the first part of the song with our demo, but it was great to get the whole band involved, because we've had a lot of changes in the lineup over the last few years, and myself and Stu were put into a position where we really didn't have much choice but to just start writing together without a band. And it was quite difficult. So of course we're still coming out of the back of what's happened over the last 10 years with the band, I suppose.
Right.
And hopefully the next album that we work on will be with Mark and Lee involved as well, which would be great. Be really good.
Yeah, that the title track, you know, like you said, how it's disjointed. It's like because my mother had dementia, and from complications, you know, she passed away from it. So it kind of hit a little home to me. So when I was listening to that, I was like going, "This is what my mom was going through," you know, because she did. I knew it as far back as 2012 when we went. My girlfriend and I went to go visit her. That she was so different than the 2 years prior, and it's just amazing that how the human mind just basically shuts itself from, you know, almost from reality, you know, and they have their own little reality, and
exactly.
So
it's a very confused reality, you know.
Yeah,
so you take bits from different eras and different decades, and you know, apparently me and my brother really loved it on the farm that Dad was evacuated to between 1940 and 1945. Although obviously we weren't around. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're going through that at the moment, Stu, aren't you? Of course.
Yeah.
And you already have gone through it. I went through it when I was very young, and I didn't know. I just thought my granddad was just, I don't know, rude, ignorant. I didn't really quite know what it was.
Right.
But of course, Stuart was obviously, you know, it's very close to home. But I suppose a lot of our fan base is obviously growing older with us. And I suppose it's going to be inevitable that people are coming up against, you know, knowing people who've got.
Yeah, I think the song resonates with a lot of people of our age, you know, because it's affecting them via their parents or grandparents. And the irony of the whole thing is that we released the album just as my dad was actually taking a big downturn, and it was obvious that he had, you know, some kind of dementia, which has subsequently been diagnosed as Alzheimer's and vascular as well, unfortunately. But it just seemed weird that the two coincided. It was pure coincidence because the song's not actually about my dad at all. But it's like life imitating art, or the other way around.
Right.
It's quite a bizarre thing. Yeah. So, but it does. And we played 2 shows in Europe a couple of weeks ago, and we finished the gigs with that particular track. And the Belgian show, the Spirit of '66 in Verviers, which is a fantastic little venue.
Right.
The atmosphere was electric, wasn't it, Dean? For that last track, people were like sort of swaying and putting their phones up.
Yeah, both shows. I mean, Lee Abraham was getting quite choked up during the show, during that song, because the audience were just singing along with us. It was it's just one of those, as Stu said, it's resonated with so many people.
Like spontaneous, wasn't it? It kind of spontaneously happened at the end of the gig. It was quite a bizarre thing. And you just felt that closeness to the audience, which
I think someone recorded and put that on YouTube.
Yeah, possibly.
I'm not sure if it's from that show, but when I saw that, yeah, I could see how the audience was interacting with. And
yeah, it's quite overwhelming. I must say. I think it was. It took me right back to when we went to Poland in 2006.
Oh yes,
that same sort of, you know, that feeling that, you know, it's just one of those. Well, I suppose it's going to forever be in our set now.
It's like kind of you feel at one with the audience sort of thing, and it's sort of like this.
Well, I wanted to go down through the songs. Obviously, we spoke about the title track, but just to give people ideas as to what the songs are about, but let them kind of figure it out on their own. But Behind the Veil of a Smile.
Yeah, that's kind of, again, it's about, a lot of these songs are kind of about relationships, really. Quite a personal thing, I suppose. Apart from "Righteous and the Damned," maybe, I don't know. But "Veil of a Smile," it's kind of about friendships, when people, misunderstand things and get things wrong and get a bit paranoid about things, and unfortunately, it has a detrimental effect on that particular relationship or friendship. So that's kind of what it's about, really. And if you listen to the lyrics, it gives you more of an idea, as it were.
Right, right. And I think that's a wonderful opener, you know, because I like Dean's electronics going on all the songs. He just kind of, like we spoke the last time, you kind of like, in a way, kind of modernize the band with by having that electronics going on, because a lot of, I just noticed that a lot of the prog bands are just going for more, the keyboardists are going for a more traditional sound. Now that's not bad. It's just that, they're just kind of stuck at a certain, almost like a fixed point in time. Yeah. And I like it when keyboardists kind of think outside of the box.
I love it. I get so inspired by just playing around with the synthesizers, and you hook onto something, and I'm just thinking, I've got to get that in there somehow. I'm going to get that sequence or that arpeggiator or whatever, because it's just, I mean, I'm like a kid in the candy store with it, to be honest.
Now, the one song that I get, I think is a lot of that's so memorable is "Everything's Changed." I mean, that one, I was listening to it the other day, and it's just like, that's one of the songs off the album that kind of, it stays with you after the song is over.
Okay, that's interesting that you say
that one. Stu did actually come up with the melody line before we had the music, so that was very much I wrote the music based around Stuart's melody, which of course then shaped it in the way it was, so that would make sense that it's quite a, the actual vocal melody is going to be the main part of that song,
right?
I basically sang you the chorus, didn't I? And then you had to work out what blimmin' chords it was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then of course you sort of almost what do they call it when people do this reverse engineering? It's almost like a reverse engineering job.
Yeah,
which is brilliant. I much prefer to do that than because we've got certain demos where I think probably it's just we can't find anything to fit. So it's great when it's the other way around, when it's like, Stuart's normally left with a headache trying to come up with something from a piece of music. So it's brilliant when it's the other way around.
Yeah. But I think that's great in general, is the fact that we don't write in any set way. We'll write whatever. Every song is different, and it's like, was it Open Water that we did on the Galahad Electric Company? I basically sang a whole vocal on Pro Tools and sent it to Dean, and Dean literally wrote the music around the vocal, which is quite rare.
Totally, the whole song. Yeah, that one wasn't it? Because you literally had like a key and a tempo, and then we imported it into my system, and then it was just a vocal. And that was literally it. So great fun, absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed that.
And then Shadow in the Corner.
That was 100% a groove. That was all my whole focus was to find a groove. I wanted to get a groove, something which was a bit funky, something which would, electronics in it. And then obviously when we get to the chorus, it's very much shaped by what Stu comes up with. So he had my groove and then worked a chorus out, which I then had to like reverse engineer again, I suppose you could say. So
you come up, so Dean would come up with the chords for the chorus. I'll then come up with a melody that might not quite fit, but almost does. And then Dean will sort of modify it. And then eventually we kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we find a sort of like a way to make it work. which is
Yeah,
great
exactly.
fun. But that was all basically based around that chord, that 4 bars. And
Yeah.
it was a deliberate attempt to just get a groove going on that particular one.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of about that's sort of about as the chorus says, there's a shadow in the corner sitting there looking at me. It's a bit like sometimes you feel like there's someone else watching over you and things happen, you're not quite sure why they happen, or and maybe something is having pulling some strings somewhere. It's very kind of ethereal, and it sounds odd. It's hard to explain, but it's almost like there's either something else or someone else, or maybe even another version of yourself, making sure that you follow a certain path or you do a certain thing or whatever. And sometimes life feels a bit like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like there's something in the background that's somehow manipulating what you're doing or where you're going or what you're saying. And, you know, it's not a cop out, honest, but
That is a line of fate, I suppose. That's where it's fate,
it is
isn't it?
kind of about fate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kismet, that kind of thing, you know. But yeah, it's funny. A lot of people have remarked on this song because I didn't think it was necessarily one of the strongest songs on the album, but a lot of people have picked up on it actually, and also the musically, the groove as well. People have mentioned it a lot.
And then you got the next one, The Righteous and the Damned.
That was great fun. That was great. That was
there.
another Stuart melody, funny enough, wasn't it? That was another melody that Stu had. And then we built what I love about this, and I love about Galahad, is the fact that it's a guitar-based track, which I did on synthesizers. And then Lee had to interpret. And I think he's done an amazing job at being able to interpret. Because I sometimes I'll play something as this is the guitar line, Lee, and he'll be going, oh my god, that's that's all over the place. That's really, really tricky. A guitarist wouldn't write like that. And so he had to somehow interpret all of our demo, and it does meander into different directions and different realms all the time. But again, that was based a lot around Stuart's melody to start with.
Yeah, and the idea was
great fun.
A bit sort of quirky and a bit all over the place. And there's if you read it or if you listen to it, there's no actual chorus. There's no chorus at all. There's a couple of repetitive lines, but there's no chorus. And basically, and I think I'm actually a massive fan of System of a Down, and I think Dean's a fan as well. And it was kind of, if there is any band on this album that influenced anything, I have to say it was System of a Down. They influenced this song quite a lot because I love the way that they do similar things like that. The sort of this kind of almost sort of European, slightly Eastern European, Jewish, Middle Eastern type sound. And that very much was the case for the intro, basically. And that was inspired by a visit to Krakow in Poland quite a few years ago now, wasn't it? When Roy was still in the band. That was what, 2014, 15, something like that?
Must have been, yeah, I would say around that time. And we went to the Jewish quarters, didn't we?
Yeah, we went to the Jewish quarter
so inspired.
And it inspired it there because they had these musicians playing sort of violins and what have you. And then I came up with this melody, this la na 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 na. And I sort of sung it to Dee, and I said, right, whatever we do, we mustn't forget this.
Yeah.
Because this was early on in the evening, and I'm thinking, shit, just try and remember it, all right?
Yeah.
So we did. Amazingly, we did.
Great fun. It was almost a seas of change moment, because like, this little idea turned into almost 9 minutes.
Yeah. That's true. But yeah, no, I'm proud of it, and I think it's a bit of a Marmite song. I mean, some people have said they love it because it's so different, and other people, I think, they struggle a little bit because it isn't normal what we would normally do, or what's perceived as what we would normally do.
Right.
But I think that's good. I think it's good to sort of push people's buttons as well.
Yeah. That's what I like when bands do that. Because I mean, when I was younger, I liked bands that were safe. I call them safe bands, that they didn't they didn't go, they didn't color outside the lines, you know. But as I'm getting older, I tend to like bands that just kind of push buttons and just kind of surprise you on stuff, even if it's, you know, even subtle surprises, you know, is, you know, because I mean, it'd be kind of weird if all of a sudden you just guys went full blown metal, you know, you wouldn't, it wouldn't work because, you know, I mean, some people would like it, but it just wouldn't work. To me, it wouldn't work that well. I mean, but you guys do incorporate with the guitar a lot of the heavier sounds, which kind of, again, also kind of brings a modern feel to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and also I think when I was doing the vocals, it was a bit more visceral. It's quite raw in some ways. And there are some places on that song I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sure about that. And I think, well, actually, no, that's the whole point, is for it to sound a little bit rawer and a little bit more sort of, you know, like I'm sort of going for it a bit, or going for it quite a lot at times. But but I tell you, I was thinking about this the other day, and when we do try and experiment and do different things, there was a moment in the early 80s when Genesis had released several quite poppy albums like Abacab, even Duke to a certain extent. And then they released the Genesis self-titled album. And when the first single came out, Mama, I was like, wow, it's like they haven't really experimented in ages. And that single was so unusual and so different at the time.
Yeah.
With the whole ha ha ha, oh, and the very sort of sparse, you know, music in the background. And I thought, yeah, Genesis have written in a different way, but they've kind of gone back to how they used to be. And in other words, experimenting a bit with different sounds, and obviously the drum machine, which is old hat now, but in 1984, it was actually quite a new thing.
Yeah,
you know. And that sort of gated snare and all that kind of stuff that Phil Collins used. And and I thought that album was actually quite a strong album, actually, in the end, you know.
Right. And we talked about The Long Goodbye, and now on the CD, there's two bonus tracks, Darker Days and Open Water. And Darker Days has a very, you know, memorable chorus. And I like
the opening track, wasn't it? At one point, it was going to be the opening track of the album instead of Behind the Veil of a Smile.
Yeah, it was like a toss between the two, basically.
And we had arguments is a strong word. It wasn't the word arguments, but myself and Stu had a different opinion to the others, and luckily we won. That sounds a bit bad, but I think basically we were thinking the trouble is Darker Days is a little bit of a negative song to start with. It just, you know, it is a you know, deliberately written as a negative, you know, and I think possibly it's about the greatest way to open an album, maybe, is what we were thinking.
Yeah, it is about someone who is struggling with their own sort of kind of I know it's a very overused term these days, but sort of mental health issues, and it is written around the time of COVID and all that kind of stuff. And and as Dean says, I just felt we wanted to write something that, okay, lyrically, Veil of a Smile's not much more positive, but it does sound a bit more positive. But I think Darker Days, I think the idea of it being the first track was a good idea because it's a great intro, very guitar orientated, great intro. But I just felt that Veil of a Smile overall was a stronger track.
Right. Yeah. Well, what I like about this is, you know, the lyrical content is dark, but the music is kind of up, has an upbeat to it, you know, and especially in the chorus right there, if someone wasn't paying attention to the lyric, you'd think that this was a kind of a happy song in a way.
Yeah.
And I like when bands do that. You know, it's like they have dark lyrics with lighthearted sounding music, or they have very soft music, and the lyric content is, you know, so dark. You know, it's like the context.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. That's sort of an emo thing. It's
Yeah.
I absolutely, I love that. It's it just takes you down a path that you're not expecting, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit. Do you know the Flaming Lips at all?
Yes.
Ron? Well, that song, Do You Realise, is a very up-tempo, fast strumming song, you know, and it's basically all about death. So, you know.
Yeah.
But I love that song, and I love it is a very upbeat song with a very quirky video. But again, it's quite a not negative exactly, but it's quite a dark lyric.
Right.
And I do like that. So yeah.
And then the last one, Open Water, which out of all of them is the shortest songs. At a little over 4 minutes.
And that definitely is to me. As soon as I heard Stuart's lyric on that, I absolutely loved it, because it's just one of those. It really is about struggling with your own sort of your inner demons, and at least from my perspective, Stuart might have a slightly different idea, but it's that literally you're just treading water trying to keep afloat.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, it is literally about just trying to maintain everything around you, and it's almost as if you feel like everything is sort of just about to fall apart, and you're just trying to keep everything together, and that's what it's all about. And the whole open water thing is you're feeling isolated, and you're looking calm on top like a duck does, but you're paddling like buggery underneath to try and keep everything going, to stay afloat.
Stay afloat, yeah.
And I think this is an album I think that everybody can relate to. You know, if not all the songs, some of the songs they hear, things that it's like with Open Water itself, right? We all have those moments,
Exactly.
And I have one question. Actually, it's from Kevin. He said, "Do you guys have plans to cross the pond again?"
Well, we'd love to.
Amazing. Yeah.
A, we need an offer, but B, the trouble is it's so expensive these days. And you need the esters, and I'm sure that it wasn't as difficult to go and play in America or the USA as it was when we played Rossfest back in the 2000s. I mean, it would be fantastic, but it would cost a lot of money to get us over there. But we'd do it if anyone wants to,
absolutely.
We'll be there like a shot.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to do
all
that again.
Subsidies appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
A band from your country, Big Train, is doing in March, doing a few.
Yeah, it's the
dates.
first time that Greg and Co have been to America, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on. I think that apparently they've sold out one show.
The first show. I think the very first show, the opening one.
Yeah, and I think they've obviously put a lot of effort. They probably spent a lot of money on it as well. I mean, it helps that they're now signed to Inside Out, so obviously they're assuming that they'll help with the finances. But hopefully it will work. I mean, the thing is, these days, I don't know. Are there so many American? There used to be quite a few American festivals, but there don't seem to be as many these days.
The only ones, I guess, major ones right now is, I'm not sure what's going on with Rossfest, but I know Cruise to the Edge, but that's more of an international one because it's in international waters. Then up in New Jersey, we have Prague Stock, but they're kind of, I hate saying it, small time.
It seems quite localized, doesn't it? Prague
Stock?
Yeah.
It's just not the same as it
was. Nearfest not going now, is it?
Oh,
no, they haven't.
Isn't it? Is it?
I think that was the last. When I played there in 2012, it was the last one, I think.
Oh right.
I got a feeling it was. Well. That's where we met Kevin, funny enough. So it's and John Wetton was there. Oh, it was brilliant. It was just amazing time it was. Yeah. I had such a lovely chat with him because we sort of lost touch a little bit for a few years.
Right.
And it was just really nice to catch. And I'm really sort of quite emotional about the fact that I had such a nice chat with him
Right.
when we caught up, and it was like he came over to me, and it was like, oh, it's just almost like a different John. It was a lovely, because he was local he lived quite near us, and it was just
He
it was
lives
brilliant.
about 5 miles from me.
Yeah. And I got really fond memories of that, and I spent a good sort of half an hour with him just chatting, and it was absolutely brilliant. So lovely.
Yeah, I got to see him when he played in Los Angeles in 1997 when he had Martin Orford
Yeah.
in the band, and it was so weird that right after that show, across the street was a hotel where I was staying at, and just about almost everybody was staying at there, and I was walking, and I noticed out of the corner of my eye, I see Martin, and I'm like going, and I just had to ask. I said, "Are you Martin?" And he goes, "Yes." And we talked from like it was like 2 a.m. to sunrise, and it was just And I told him that I first saw IQ in Los Angeles. Let's see, 5 years earlier, 4 or 5 years earlier in '93, and I've been following ever since because I never heard of him before. That I just knew the obvious usual suspects, and the only one, honestly, from the '80s that I knew of was Marillion, because they were, their song Kaylee was on MTV pretty much on heavy rotation at the beginning when it was first released. So it's like I didn't know any other bands, and then I went to this prog fest, and I was like, oh, so there's a lot more out there. I didn't. So John Wetton still to this day is one of my favorite singers and bass players, and actually one of my I would say one of my musical heroes. I mean, I never got to meet the guy. I got to see him play live, and on YouTube somewhere someone has just a small portion of that show, and it's just kind of nice to go and revisit that every so often. It's like I think someone put up like 30 minutes out of the hour that he played, and it was nice. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it would be nice to see you guys over here, but just like like you said, and Kevin, Kevin says it's the visas are the costs are crazy these days, and he also said that the Cruise to the Edge show, since they're in international waters, you don't need a visa.
Yeah, so I mean, we've just really, for the first time in a few years, we've been over to Europe, and the costs have gone up tremendously. And I suppose some of it is post-lockdown, post-COVID as well. I suppose prices have all gone up for that. I think our costs were almost double when this year, close to at least another 40% than what we paid, last time, just for the basic hire and all the crossings, all the stuff that we needed.
Right. In fact, yesterday, Lynn found our first contract ever with Francis at the Spirit of 66 when we played in 2002, and he paid us 300 quid.
Okay, so it's affected everybody then.
Yeah, so basically 300 quid wouldn't even cover the hire of the vehicle now.
No,
not even close.
I mean, it's such a shame.
It wouldn't cover the Channel crossing. Actually, it wouldn't.
No. I mean, it is a shame, because I suppose all the costs have gone up, and then to cover that we have to get paid more. And at the end of the day, it's the punters that end up suffering. They're the ones that are ending up paying for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't go. You can't afford to go. It's a shame. It's just, I think there are some companies that are just bumping the prices up for the sake of it, because we've had Brexit. over here.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course the COVID lockdown and all that lot.
Well, there's a EU premium on van hire. What that means, I don't know, but that was about £350 on its own. So that was a bit
just for going to Europe with it. Whereas, of course, that wasn't the case pre-Brexit. So yeah,
but we were lucky because there were good gigs in Europe, and we did cover our costs, and we sold plenty of merchandise. We took vinyl to Europe for the first time, and we didn't take enough. But we had, when we played in Belgium, we had one record left, one vinyl left.
Oh wow!
For the Dutch gig, we'd sold out, so we could have taken double, if not 3 times as many albums on vinyl as we took. So, because of course, it's at the moment it's a big thing. So,
right, yeah, like Kevin was saying, is that the visa for one band member was more than what they paid the full band and crew at Nearfest.
Really?
So it's, I mean, the combination of that and our policies here in America, that and COVID, people obviously they didn't learn from the last big pandemic back, in the early 1900s, and thinking, I think the mentality was basically, it's never going to happen again. When people say that, it's going to happen. We were vastly unprepared. I know in our country we were extremely unprepared, and we're still not really prepared. We're still kind of like, what do we do? So it's hopefully, well, I don't think I'll be around in the next 100 years, but hopefully they'll, someone will look, at least, they got 2 pandemics that they can learn from.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, we'll see. I mean,
we actually thought that was possibly the end of our career in playing live.
Yeah,
I think mixed with Brexit and COVID. I didn't think there was much coming back from it, so it was amazing to be able to go back over to Europe just a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly, and also we in Verviers, for example, in Belgium, we didn't have a support. It was just us, and at the Borderreich in Holland, we did have a support, Christoph Gildenau, but it was only 2 bands, and yet we had the best audiences we've had in Europe, didn't we? At those 2 venues.
Yeah,
I think it was the
third. Well, it was the one in Bordeaux. It was a double header, wasn't it? It was their album release as well. So it was But I think we were pleasantly shocked at the turnout. Fantastic turnout. So yeah, that's G'd us up a little bit, because I must admit I sort of felt that we'd never be doing that again. We wouldn't be playing abroad again, and without sounding disparaging, it's like the UK gigs just don't really have the attendances, and it's quite sad to see, really, isn't it? It's just such a shame, but you can have a large lineup of bands playing at the festival for a couple of hundred people maximum.
Yeah,
right.
It's such a shame.
And then you can go out on your own to Europe as one band, and you actually get a bigger audience than that.
You can exceed that. Yeah, that's right. It's
quite incredible. But we've got shows we've got a show in Poland in July, so we're looking forward to that. Yeah. It's a festival actually, but it'll be the first time we've played it, I think, but it'll be good fun. And then we've got one in the UK. It's a Prog for Peart, so for Neil Peart, basically, to raise money for cancer charities, because obviously he died of a sort of brain cancer.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And again, you think that to get a couple of hundred people wouldn't be too difficult, but it's not easy. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Especially in such a small country. It seems bizarre.
Right. So what's besides the live shows, what's on the horizon for the
Well,
band?
next year's a big one, isn't it, for us? So next year's our 40th anniversary.
Oh,
Yeah,
So
that's a bit scary. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So at the moment we're thinking of, we've got to try and get ideas together of what to do. We've already booked a couple of shows in Europe for next year, but from a musical point of view, we're not quite sure what we're going to do. It would be good to market with maybe an album of some sort, but we're we're just throwing a few ideas in at the moment.
Mhm.
I don't think
Now-
we've got time to write a brand new one.
No, and the shows as well, yeah.
And the shows as well. So
Now, what about? I know years ago, was it Metal Mind did the DVDs of some of the concerts that they at that theater that they
right.
have.
The Whiskey House Theatre in Poland.
And
Yeah.
have you guys thought about doing another live video, DVD or Blu-ray?
Not really. Maybe
Again,
at some
it might be
point.
something in the bag for the 40th. We haven't really sort of got that far ahead yet, have we? But
Yeah.
potentially.
It'll be good to do it. It'll be good to do it at some point. But yeah, it takes quite a bit of organising. But yeah, it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, because that I think that I mean, was it last year or the year before? IQ did their 40th.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I went to their show at Islington Assembly Rooms. Actually, it was good.
Yeah, so it's like that. There's another band that they kind of progress with each album and just kind of think outside of the box, which is nice. I like that. It's like,
yeah. I mean, obviously, keyboard-wise. Sorry, I was going to say keyboard-wise, they sound a bit different because, of course, Martin isn't involved and hasn't been for quite a few years now.
Right.
So that had an immediate impact on sort of their sound. But I thought The Road of Bones was a great album, and I love that track. It's a great track.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that would be a nice double bill if someone can arrange that. You guys.
The last time we played with IQ, I think, was in 1988.
Oh wow! Way before I was in the band, even.
Yeah, along either 88 or 87. I can't. We played at a place called the Regent Centre in Christchurch, which is our hometown. Historically, it's where Galahad was formed, and IQ were actually based in the same area, and they used to play a pub called the Pinecliff when they were called the Lens.
Yes.
Before they had a singer, because Mike and or certainly Martin, who's based over towards Southampton, which is around 30 miles away. So we kind of knew them a bit. And the first time I saw IQ in concert was in 1983, and in front of about 30 people, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then we played with them on, I think it was Non Zarmo, possibly tour, I think. Again in Christchurch. When obviously Pete wasn't in the band, it was Paul Minnell.
Right. Yeah, I had a chance of I think it was last year to speak with him. And it's kind of interesting. I spoke with Peter and Mike like a year before that, and then just to talk with Paul, just to get a different perspective as to what was going on, and you got to hear two sides of the story,
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I don't.
The last thing I heard that he kind of disappeared.
Yeah,
and it's been years because I was wondering why on my Facebook feed I wasn't seeing, it was like a daily postings from him about something, and then nothing for about 2 or 3 years now, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I don't really know anything of that. I don't know about that, to be honest, but
Right. Yeah.
yeah, don't get involved. But
But yeah. Well, I want to thank you both again. Taking the time out of your Saturday night to talk with me about your new album, The Long Goodbye. In case anyone hasn't already purchased this, this is really, if you kind of call yourself
yeah, we can all
a,
do that.
Gala,
Look, see, look, all of us.
a
Look.
Galahad fan, and he gets the big one.
Hey,
Yeah. Hold on, with the big gatefold as well. Like, there you go.
yeah, that looks smart.
Oh,
I
there
tell
you
you
go.
what, the black and white vinyl is fantastic because it really matches the artwork. It's really, really good.
What have I got there?
Good.
I got that.
Oh, you got that one.
Oh, you got the purple black.
That's a big CD.
Yeah. It's either a big CD or you're really small.
Yeah, that's it. I'm a very small person. Oh dear. No, it's brilliant with the vinyl. I've been loving vinyl. Stuart got me back into vinyl again. I think you've reignited my passion for that, Stuart. So Stu was upgrading his record deck, so I was able to get his old one, which is fantastic. And now I've gone on this never-ending journey of buying vinyl again at today's prices.
I know. It's expensive, isn't it?
I think I've spent a fair few £100 on it.
Yeah,
but it's brilliant. The whole thing with vinyl, and my daughter, I bought my daughter a record player for Christmas, and she's now discovered the pleasures of vinyl, because it's an event. You put it on, and it's not just something in the background. You literally put the record on, put the needle on, you sit down, you listen to it. Whereas it's very easy just to go to your Alexa or whatever it would be and just say, play an album by so and so.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a
just got to go and have a thingy.
Disappear.
It's a convenience. Those those.
Yeah.
Those,
I mean, it is brilliant. It is brilliant, but I tend to find that I get distracted. So if I ask the Echo to put something on, I might then go and, I don't know, do the washing up or something. Whereas when I put an album on, a vinyl album on, I sit down and I listen to it.
Yes.
And I don't put it on for any reason apart from listening to it. It's not just music in the background. And it's just reinvigorated all of the joy of music again for me. I'm not that I lost the joy of music, but it's just reinvigorated this whole thing for me.
Right.
I just love it so much. And
yeah, that's the thing. It's like you just sit down there, if you have a special room to listen to it,
yeah,
put your headphones on and, dim the light and just, sit back and listen.
Brilliant. Unbeatable. Yeah. And it's just been, for me, it's been one band that I was never really into, not for any reason apart from the fact that I just never really got round to listening to them, and this is quite surprising, but my daughter introduced me to them, and there's a band called Fleetwood Mac. You might have heard of them.
Oh yeah.
So of course I went out straight away and bought Rumours, and what's really interesting is when I then played, I got my daughter the Rumours album with the record player, and she looked at it and she went, it's got all their best songs on it. Now, from Spotify, she just asked Spotify to play Fleetwood Mac songs. What she didn't realize is that the majority of the songs that they bring up at the beginning of a playlist is basically most of the Rumours album.
Right.
And she didn't have the concepts of an album. That's it. That's the and that's
the LP. This is the remastered version.
Brilliant. And I think as a young lady, she just didn't really have an idea of the concept of what an album was all about. And side A and side B, the running order, and all of those, and the artwork, all of the things that is missing now. Because all you now do is you get Spotify to play a song at random, and they're not even in the order the artist intended them to be.
Right.
So
No,
to go back and now listen to an actual vinyl, and you're listening to it as the artist wants you to hear it,
Exactly.
and then you start to, the enjoyment has just gone right back up through the roof for me again. It's amazing.
yeah, that's
And that's
it's
the
like
one. Brilliant.
every
And
every song on this album is a classic. Basically, there's
Yeah.
no filler on it. It's incredible. The Chain, Secondhand Use, Don't Stop, Go Your Own Way, Songbird is beautiful.
Yeah.
Chain, I Don't Want to Know, Oh Daddy, yes, yeah,
Brilliant album. Yeah.
Right.
And for me, it's like a new band because I just missed out on it the first time round. So I've discovered Fleetwood Mac.
Well, to me, it doesn't really matter when you discover it, but when you discover it, it's like, it's like it's amazing. It's like especially if it's a band you've heard of, you heard of them, but you never really sat down to listen to them for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that becomes your favorite album, whether you bought it on release day
tell you what,
or years later.
That's right. And, Rumours has become one of my all-time favorite albums. And yet a year ago, I wasn't really listening to it. So it's only been within the last year that I've really picked up on Rumours. And I just, it's almost embarrassing, but it's just amazing.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's like, I think sometimes I wonder if I'm ever going to hear a band that will have an emotional impact on me listening to it for the first time or whatever, like I did when I was younger. And sometimes I think it's never going to happen again. And occasionally a band will come along and you think, wow, that's amazing. And you just follow them. One of those bands was Rammstein, which I think, and again, me and Dean are quite similar in that respect. We were blown away by this album called Mutter, which the production was amazing. It was incredibly heavy, but very melodic. Even my wife, Lynn, loves it, and she doesn't really like heavy music.
Right.
And subsequently, we've seen them a lot of times live, and that was great. But even that was a long time ago now. And there's another band. I'll just show you this. There's a band called Mew. I don't know if you know Mew.
Yeah.
They're a Scandinavian band. I think they may be Finnish actually. But they're sort of indie, but they're quite proggy as well. But they've got some really gorgeous songs, and I've seen them a couple of times. And actually, having said that, Greg Sporton is a massive fan as well. In fact, we went to see Mew at the festival hall in London, and Greg went along on his own. So we said, "Well, come and sit with us, if you want." So he came and sat with me and Lynn, But no, I'd recommend them actually. And this is called "And the Glass-Handed Kites," the album. It's quite unusual, but quite proggy in places.
Thanks, Stu. You just gone and spent some more of my money for me.
Yeah, sorry. But,
sorry.
I know what I'm going to be doing in a minute. Seeing what's online.
Well, the thing, the one thing about purchasing music or honestly any physical media is it's yours for life, or as long as you keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, right here, all this. I mean, I can't. I always tell people it's like nowadays, especially, you got to support these bands. If you can't see them live, buy their CD, and if you don't have the room in your house for a CD, buy the digital download. But support them because it costs them money to make their music. It's not something that all of a sudden they're just doing on online stuff. They don't have any equipment or anything like that. So it's like you got to really support bands such as yourself, because you really need that. That's the only way that you guys are going to be able to make more music.
Yeah,
is by
we're lucky because we built up a following over many years. But for new bands, it must be just soul destroying. You can put things very easily out onto Spotify and Apple Music, etc. But the return is so pitiful that you probably would never make your money back for your recording.
Right.
Even bought it yourself as cheap as possible. If you bought yourself a MacBook Pro to record your album on, you probably wouldn't get the return to pay for the MacBook Pro.
Right.
You know, it's crazy.
We're exactly. I mean, we're lucky in that obviously we're part of a demographic that has got older, and our fans have got older with us, and most of them still buy physical. Well, a lot of them still buy physical formats. You know, they'll buy LPs or buy CDs. But as Dean said, a lot of the younger bands, their fans don't want to buy music. They won't buy physical music. They won't. They just want to stream it, and that's that. And you think, well, how's it going to sustain itself? How's it going to be able to afford to record music? And of course, when you're younger as well, you probably haven't got the income you have maybe when you're a bit older and what have you going through your life. So, and I think a lot of younger bands these days, they just seem to kind of dabble and then give up because they can't see any way of taking it forward. And I mean, you know, it's not just about making a living out of it. It's actually just being able to afford to get a basic album recorded and out.
Right.
And unless you've got a record company or someone behind you with who's prepared to stick their neck out and maybe fund you, then you're a bit stuffed.
Yeah, I mean, even if you can just break even from something which is, you know, not much more than a hobby, then it'll allow artists to develop. But artists won't be able to develop, will they? Because eventually it'll start to be taking away too much of their earnings from maybe a day job, and they wouldn't be able to do it. It's absolute tragic the way it's gone.
Yeah, it is. So I think in a way we're lucky. Because I think we've been a part of the golden age of pop rock music, whatever you like to call it. Because I think that's kind of past now in a way, you know. And I'm grateful for that. Although I wish I'd been born a bit younger, because I'd like to have seen Led Zeppelin in their prime, but of course I never got to do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the one good thing is that there's no. I don't think there's really much in the way of tribalism with music anymore.
No,
there used to be you only liked rock music or you only liked whatever it was. Now there seems to be a real eclectic sort of thing with people now. They don't really care whether it's heavy metal, whether it's jazz, or whether it's pop, which is great. So that side of it's really good.
Yeah, I've noticed that as I've gotten older that I have a more eclectic taste. I mean, in music,
absolutely.
And I really base it on my mood.
Yes, yeah, I get that. Exactly that.
I base it on my mood. If I'm, you're kind of in a, you just got cut off by someone on the highway, and you come home and you're like, you're steaming, and so you put on something punk, just to kind of get that aggression out. So yeah, it's amazing.
Absolutely. If ever I need to just chill out, I put on Dummy by Portishead, that album, and I just play that out through, and it's just a great way to settle you. I love it.
Well, we had a great chat again.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys taking the time out, to talk with me. Love the new album. Last year it was on my favorites of 2023. So it seems like that's how it's been every year that something's come out from you guys, or every time something's come out from you guys. It always becomes an instant favorite. So I thank you for that.
Lovely to hear.
Yeah. I mean, the downside is we've got to do it again somehow.
Yeah, the pressure's on.
Oh, and one last thing from Kevin. He says, tell Dean that he'll make the wings next time. If you guys come over. I'm sure you guys know exactly what that means. So,
lovely.
All right. Well, thanks again, and I look forward to what comes next with you guys, as everyone else out there does.
Yeah. No. Cheers. I mean, at the moment, even we don't know. So it's almost a blank canvas. So we have a few ideas. We actually do have some ideas in progress, but we need to sift through them all and see if we can use them. And like Dean said earlier, it would be nice to try and write with the guys as a whole band for a change. Like in the old days, we used to get together in rehearsals and just jam and come up with ideas, and they gradually morphed into songs. Whereas obviously in the last few years, it's really been just me and Dean, not because we wanted to particularly, but because we had no choice. But it would be good to be right as a band again, as a whole.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll say goodnight to you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, well, take care.
Thank you very much.